This week, I'm showing you how I made this delicious purple one cake. Wait, no, that's not right. This week, I'm showing you how I made this giant purple one cake. It also hides a little surprise inside, but we're going to wait until a little bit later on to see what it is. Let's start at the beginning. I've baked myself 3 salted caramel sponges in different sizes as shown. I'm going to level them off and remove the caramelisation from the bottoms. I'm not too worried about the sides right now, as this will be removed as I carve my base shape. I've made myself a very basic paper template, and this is just to guide me on the size and the shape of the base of the purple one. I'm simply laying it over my sponges and cutting away the extra. The chocolate itself tapers in as it goes up, so a lot of this will be carved away. I've also made a template for the side of the cake which I'm using to carve away a nice even curve. My cake isn't quite high enough, so I'm using the offcuts from the corners of the largest cake to build up a little bit more on top. Now I've given myself a really good starting point, I'm going to round out the edges and mimic the shape of the purple one chocolate. When carving 3D cakes, it's best to work on taking off small bits at a time, as it's so much easier to take more off than it is to stick it back on. I'm really happy with the shape of my cake, so I'm going to move on to the middle. Now the really iconic things about a purple one are the hazelnut in the centre surrounded by that gooey delicious caramel, and I really wanted to reflect that in the cake. As far as I'm aware, I can't go out and get a giant hazelnut, so I had to create this from something else. I decided as I carved so much sponge away from the cake, I would use this mixed with buttercream to make a cake pop type consistency that I could easily mould into a hazelnut. So I'm going to pop this into the fridge for about half an hour so I can cover it with some fondant and really make it look like a hazelnut. I'm going to add a little ivory food colour to get the perfect hazelnut shade, and I'm going to roll out my fondant and cover and smooth it out as best as I can. To add texture, I'm using this fondant shaping tool to add deeper lines, dividing it into 4 and then lightly scoring the rest of the surface to replicate the skin of the hazelnut. I'm really happy with how that turned out, so now I just need to pop it inside the cake. I've laid out all my sponges, and starting from the bottom, I'm going to carve out a hole for the hazelnut to sit in. I want the hole to be pretty snug, but I'm leaving just a small gap around the outside as I want to add another little element into the cake. Before I stack and fill, I'm going to simple syrup my cakes. I do this to all of my cakes as it keeps them nice and moist throughout the decorating process. I'll link my video on all things simple syrup above. To fill this cake, I've made myself some Italian meringue buttercream. It's a lot less sweeter than regular buttercream and so smooth and silky. If you haven't made it before, you should definitely try it out. Now remember those 2 iconic parts to the purple one. We have the nut and the caramel sponges, but we really need a gooey caramel in there too. So I made a jar of delicious salted caramel sauce, and I'm going to dollop that into the well and keep adding as I move up the layers, not forgetting to add in the hazelnut. So, would this be the perfect cake for you, or do you prefer another quality street? Mine is a tie between the coconut eclair, green triangle and fudge. Let me know your favourite in the comments below, and I may just recreate the most popular one. Finally, I'm going to crumb coat my cake, chill and give it another layer of buttercream, this time really smoothing out those sides. I do this with a piece of food safe plastic. This is actually a flexible fondant smoother, and I can use it to curve and work around the whole of the cake. Now it's time to cover the cake in fondant. I'm actually starting off with white fondant, and to make it chocolatey I'm going to knead in some cocoa powder. This can be quite messy, so add a little at a time and taste test along the way. Now the cocoa itself doesn't get it to that rich chocolate colour, and we don't want to add so much cocoa that it dries out the fondant, so I use food colour to get a deeper colour. Now I've actually run out of my dark brown food colour, but not to fear, as we can mix equal quantities of blue, yellow and red, and comparing it to a piece of chocolate, it is the perfect colour. So this cake can be easily handled once it's wrapped, I've cut a cake card in an identical shape to the cake and just attached it with some buttercream. I'm going to roll out my fondant with a little corn flour so that it's big enough to cover the cake, and using the rolling pin I'm going to transfer it over and smooth it out with my hands. I'm cutting away the excess but not right up to the cake, as I'm going to now lift it up and make sure that it's really tucked close to the board, and then trim away the last little bits with a sharp knife. Now the cake is covered, it needs to look more like the purple one, so I'm going to use the same fondant shaping tool as before and run it up the side of the cake, making random little wiggles as I go. Repeat on the other side and we finally have something that really resembles a giant purple one chocolate. To make this look really authentic, I managed to order some deep purple cellophane to wrap it up in. I was so excited when it arrived as it was the perfect colour. I cut it to size and added a layer of foil into it too, just like the chocolate, and wrapped it around the cake, making sure the join was underneath at the front so it could easily be opened. For the sides, I cut some little strips of purple ribbon, twisted and secured. I did the same to the other side and then trimmed away the excess ribbon. After looking at the cake, I decided that the wrapper was a little long, so I trimmed it up to make the cake look like the same proportions as the chocolate. And that's how I created a giant purple one cake. Let's see what it looks like on the inside. Oh wow, it looks perfect, and just check out all that gooey caramel around the outside. I think I definitely did the purple one proud. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If so, give it a thumbs up and do consider subscribing to my channel for more.